are together, and this is what Tatarstan is.
Волга и Кама.
Volga and Kama, it's the conflicts. It's a wonderful place in Russia, and after this rivers stop flowing, there is a huge sea, 43 kilometers wide, and that's not all. So it's I'm Kazan girl. I'm Russian. You're Natalia Lvovna Fishman. Bikmambetova, you're a Jewish girl. And what's your feeling here in this Muslim area? I feel very comfortable. Belarusians, Bashkirs in Gushi, and I say that's Mari music. Sasha's Marina. These are Marina and Udmurtia people. So doctors, yes. She's Russian and her husband is Tatar, and our children are. We have a lot of mixed marriages, so that's why mixed marriages. Yes, the best children. We have. My father-in-law was Tatar, and we just friends. Ukrainian lives on. Ukrainian Chachol lives where it's west, and I live where I feel better. And this is Republic of Tatarstan. Well, nobody can be surprised by the stories how in Tatar families children have Russian names because, for example, the doctor with the Russian name helped. And so this girl you probably recognized immediately, Guzel Yakhina. She is a writer of bestsellers, and there's My Children, then Zulfa Eyes. So the main role was played by Chulpan Khamatova. I just remember the Volga, how Volga flows into Volga, the Kama flows into Volga, and this beautiful place, and I cry. So, and this is the view from space. Volga, Kama, and tributaries. So territory of Tatarstan, so getting to the north of Volga. A lot of clouds today. So here as we see the continuation of Volga. And here is on its turn, it's Kazan right there, in the middle of. It's not an accident that we asked to show the conflicts of Volga and Kana from the space station, because we heard that there is a very interesting thing. So here is just almost sea. It's Kama and Volga coming. Which one falls into which? Shamif told me that Kama flows into Volga. But my opinion was Volga flows into Kama. President Minikhanov is not the only one. It's quite difficult to answer question. Legally, Kama falls into Volga, but actually, Kama brings more water. So Kama has more water. Well, there is a theory that that's what they say actually. This is Vyatka River falls into it not far away. It's proven scientifically that mass of water, Kama has more water. But it's not only Tatars' opinion. Natalia Fishman is now famous for it's all Russia, how she makes comfortable even the most remote places. So we are on Ik now. Ik River in that area flows into Kama. No, that way. What's going on after that? Kama falls into Volga, Volga into Kama. Well, we know the correct answer. Of course, Volga falls into Kama. It's just a real Tatar. How long have you been here? 5 years? And 100 years ago, in this place where we have so many interesting things, it was one of the first Soviet autonomies, Tatarskaya SSR. So how was it in the beginning? Of course, the conflicts of Volga and Kama is on the famous picture, Harisy Kupov picture. He was, for the reasons why we can't explain to you a bit later, this group of delegates from Tatarstan, it's just, it's allegory, because you can see the party activist who was the grandfather of Guzel Yakhina. But at that time, he was just a street boy without parents. And one of our ancestors, who we know, our biographer, he had Hajj to Mecca, and he had a right to wear special hat, chalma. And even from this branch of your family, you had a party activist. Who were your ancestors? They were villagers. They were just villagers, just good Tatar families. They were peasants. My grandpa was street boy. He grew in an orphanage, then spent several years in Turkestan. So in 1923 he was moved to Turkmenistan. Then he became a party activist, and from my mom, they were quite well off. They were craftsmen. They were repressed, but they were just quite strong and flexible. So neighbors asked not to be exiled, but all their property was confiscated. And how can we evaluate this epoch? That how can we understand the whole history of Russia through this? So 2 years before Tatar Republic was organized, Red Army was ready to storm, and Guzel, when you were coming here, so you told us that this is Portal. Portal, this is a place where there was no time. And Sviazhskaya, I knew it in the 80s, not far away from here, we had dacha, and you're coming here where there was, the time stopped. We had tall grass here, and we had a psychiatrist hospital here, a lot of goats, a lot of old people, sometimes even patients of the psychiatrical hospital. And right in the middle of it was a monument to Lenin. Lev Trotsky, who ordered to decimate his army under him. These people had a motto which you can imagine: freedom, fraternity, and equality. So it's just a poetry. And of course nobody thought that there was no liberty, no equality. In one of the versions, Trotsky first built a monument for Judas. Then there was the prison. Then in the Suspensky monastery, which we can see here, there was a prison. There was a Gulag prison for a long time. It was a story of humiliation, for fears, for how it is much easier to manipulate hungry people rather than well-fed people. And then in this Uspin church, they had a psychiatrical hospital. It's a small place which you can walk around in 30 minutes. It became a place of meeting of people. So on the peak of these repressions, the first president was born there. So this is the Krasny Tatar newspaper, the 20th January for 1937. So this is the article of Mikhail Kalinin. It's 1937. So this is the headline. So this is the trial over the killers, repressions. Yes, true. And on one hand, all this, the cataclysm which you had, yes, Minikhanov has the same view, yes. It was just a trend that successful people, or people who had their opinion, they were repressed. But when 3 people make decision to execute, nobody give you right to take your life apart from God. And this is this sacred law was broken, but at the same time, Shaimiyev's grandfather were from different social classes. So we talked with Yakhina about it in Kazan Kremlin, and her grandma was sent to exile. I feel sorry for the executors and for their victims. So we don't know what we would have been doing. So from now on, you cannot judge. You cannot judge now. Revolution, you can have different opinion about it, but there were people who found this subtle things to unite people, and the majority agreed with that.
We believe that today we are living in this, within the borders of the territory that was organized. The formation of that territory was signed by Vladimir Lenin. We treat him quite well. See, the monument is there. Interestingly, that 100 years after the establishment of Tatarstan Autonomous Soviet Socialist Republic is seen equally well by Tatarstanians of different descent. I think that Lenin did have some reasoning for his decision, because governing everyone in one size-fits-all doesn't possible. Self-sufficiency, ability to decide on your own. We can't change the wind, but we can have a sail and sail where we need. And not that far from Sivas, there is a new city where there is the latest center of technology innovation, where the unmanned vehicles are riding around. Let's meet their young mayor, Ruslan Shikolev, mayor of Innopolis. We are flexible. We are looking forward. What was moving people 100 years ago? Probably they've seen opportunities. All the tasks that felt on the destiny of Tatarstanians and whole of Russia will be shown in the second part of our movie. Volga, Kama, and its inlets. Ambulance. For 2 months, I was living separately from my children. I miss them very much. Yes, the doctors of Tatarstan did some challenges this year too. Yes, coronavirus. Unfortunately, there were lethal outcomes here as well. But many things were different in this republic. First of all, there was medical backbone. Wonderful Kazan City Hospital, which was unnoticed by many, saved people from many challenges. Back in 2001, we had cholera brought into our hospital. In the year 2009, swine flu. The very same team of professionals started working against COVID-19. They trust into doctors and finding those who were abused, not respecting the social distancing mode. enterprises were not closing, nothing for a day. Petrochemistry, well, Kamaz didn't work for a week. Then they came back, and that way everything went fine. Within about a week's time, we relaunched everybody. Well, we had all PPEs. People were willing to contribute, so our staff was ready to support. Where do you get the discipline in Tatarstan? You're having a strategic bomber 260, as with long distance 222 M3 are flying in the parade. White Swan strategic bombers of 260 are made in Kazan. One of them is named Vitaly Kopolov after legendary Director General of Kapo Kazan Aviation Plant. And President Putin is observing these planes not only in the Red Square, it's on his decision that Kazan starts modernizing them, and there are places where to modernize them. Tatarstan has staff. My father worked in defense industry all of his life, almost in one location. He had many years of service, one of the veterans of the company. We had lots of teachers at Kazan Aviation Institute. Is that secret defense area? I only heard that he was doing radio electronics for airplanes, and that's all I know. Well, there was only a door that was taking to his work where he was saying goodbye and leaving, and the only time when we met his colleagues was unfortunately at his burial. Diving bomber P-2 was produced at Kapo during World War II, and then Il-62 was being built here as well. Reactive engines were installed on P-2 as experimental. And there was aviational cluster, as we say today. Let's take a look at the KMPO mod engine factory. Some of those things are now in. This tester pilot has moved to Kazan in 2013. Helicopters, these have fuselages, not bodies. The Soviet and Russian technology of helicopter production is making whole fuselage, buddy. For those who are not very good in tech in equipment, connective solutions are used today as well. In this republic, they have always been caring after what has been established even in previous decades. Ferris picture of Yakub Fatahov was made in 1950 and in 51 received Stalin's award. If you take a look at those who are coming from Tatarstan, you find people from Tatars, Russian, some ladies, Tatars as well, but no specific characters, because all those who came to Moscow underwent political repressions back in 1930s. Those who were supplying or receiving affairs back in 1938, first head of Sovnarkom Sahib Gareev, the last head of city, Mr. Khodorkovsky, even though he was not happy with the replace of governor of association in 1942, Mirsadid Sultan Galiyev was repressed basically out of co-founders of TSR. Only first founder Burhan Manasov died with his own death. But the repression also touched the next generation of the leaders. We are going to the home museum of Vasily Aksionov, the writer. He's also from here. This museum is living. In what sense? You have nothing that was bought. All of those were presents of Kazanians that wanted it. The father of Aksionov is from the party, 1935, elected as a member of city community and the TSSR. In 1937, he was discharged, and the father of Aksionov, Pavel, and as well as his mother, Evgeny Ginsburg, was having years of Soviet camps. Living in Kazan, I, for some reason, was not paying much attention to this, but having read Krutoy Marshut, starting to getting introduced to works of Ginsburg, I all of a sudden realized that this was a very important layer of literature that was nearby, and you were just passing by without knowing it. And over here we have a piece of the Pride The typewriter, the buttons of which remember many things. Well, a writer that ran away from Soviet Union today is a cult writer. And in very same pre-war years, I'll be working with an ivy. It is fresh, it is eatable one. I'll be working in gloves so that it's more comfortable. Well, it's today those ivy and as well as dandelion sauces are fancy. But those recipes came about in the years of civil war and then consequences of collectivization. That's when people started eating these plants because there was nothing else. What else can we say about those years? Early years of TSSR was wearing handmade shoes out of dried herbs. Even the first coat of arms of the Republic. Well, my grandma was writing in Arabic script, not just knew how to, but she wrote letters. But even in the 1930s, there were many literate people. Soviet authorities made a miracle. The Republic was just reviving its economy. The first drama theater starts working, and later even Kazan Opera and Ballet. And later it was through Kazan that jazz of Oleg Lundstrom and even Zemlyane. And before World War II, national literature started penetrating the masses. Take Musa Jalil. His daughter is Chulpan. So for me, he's like a dad. Chulpan is actually a rare name, and whole of my childhood, I was suffering. Nobody was called Chulpan around me in those childhood poetry when Chulpan, the star of the dawn, comes up. It reminds me, I am born in 1977. For the first time, we read Musa Jalil's poetry at school in first grade. And it's just now that I remember. Those were very funny poetry. A cow in love about a gentleman making flowers, giving flowers to a lady, and she's throwing them into the window, and the cow eats them. And that way he is feeling that, well, at least cow has eaten those flowers, and that way the milk will be passing part of her love to the lady. And this is poetry written in prison before being decapitated. Well, of course, great thanks to all the people that have contributed to reviving his kind name. He's our national hero we are proud of. And at the same years, there was a terrible hit on the religion. The Zulikha opens the eyes, shows sad truth, how mosques were turned into prisons. And today, with the efforts of Revival Foundation, ancient Bulgar is shining, not just Svers, but also the cathedral of the icon of Mother Mary of Kazan, the capital are revived. There are still many cathedrals that wait for their hour. And then until 1932, our church continued existing. There were people in congregation. In 1936, it was closed. At the same time, there is another fact. In the very first 2 decades after revolution, Tatarstan, together with the rest of the country, is going not only through terrible civil war, a new economic policy, and terrible collectivization, but also industrialization, the results of which helped to save the country in the 1940s. If you take a look at 1929 through 37, we started having 100 large industrial enterprises in the Republic. What works today? All of them. In different formats, they are all present. They laid down the foundation of the industrialization, and that was a base for standing in Great Patriotic War, because all of the science, all the brains of Soviet Union moved to Kazan. Take a look at the scientists. Many have been evacuated to Kazan, half of Leningrad, as well as Sergei Korolev works in Kazan. It was in Kazan that he got freedom and then sent Yuri Gagarin, Strelka and Belka, and many others. So those takeoffs were beginning with Kazan from Tatar Soviet Socialist Republic. And today as well, Prime Minister Mishustin went with his first visit, once the pandemic slowed down, first to Kazan, because in here in Alabug Special Economic Zone, to establishment of which he has a direct hand contribution, There are very breakthrough things working here. We are getting people with teeth from all over the country, giving them the chance to get exposed to learn from directors of our plant. Mishustin has organized an important forum. He brought all the IT people because all the smart people are from Russia. They are moving abroad, creating software devices there, and then we are buying them. Well, and some are trying even not to sell them to us, so we need to bring them together, the Russians, and even give opportunity for the foreigners in such things as Innopolis. Yes, Innopolis is a wonderful place. The fact that this is IT capital of the Russian Federation, that's true. Those things are, let's say, a short-term task. We should be having a number of such centers in our country. The tasks that were set by the leader of the state, Vladimir Putin, such as providing not only for military security, but also food security and IT security. Many things start from here. It'll be working. I think we have everything for this. These young men and women might not understand that, but having done so much today in today's Russia and the Republic of Tatarstan, they are repeating many things that have been done in Tatar Autonomous Soviet Socialist Republic back in the years of Great Patriotic War. It made a lot. During those years, Second Baku, Ramashkina started extracting oil, and that oil helped to Soviet tanks to come to Berlin. We are thankful to our president that Kazan is included into the list of cities of laborious glory. That was very important. Our population respects very much. But there are many things, some things that we haven't talked about Tatarstan and Great Patriotic War. Attention, Moscow is speaking. Today, at 4 a.m. in the morning, without whatever declaration of war, German military attacked the borders of the Soviet Union. A not well-known fact, the decree on mobilization of June 1941, there was a comment of what nationalities, Russians, Belarusians, Ukrainians, and the separate row was Tatars from Kazan. Did your family fight? My uncle, the older brother of my father, Halim Janabi, back in 1941, died and buried under Moscow. In Tatarstan, 700,000 people went to front, and half of them did not return. I had only one grandpa that I have seen. He fought, he reached Poland. He was a driver that was moving Katyusha launch stations. My grandpa, he was fighting at Leningrad front and Sinyavinsky operation. That was the only time in his life that he visited Hermitage. Today, one of the very, very few branches of Hermitage is in Kazan. One more place that is attracting to Tatarstan, this time millions of tourists. Well, the skills that the Republic has received back in 1930s and 50s allows the new generation of Tatarstanians to look into the future. Alabaga was identified as the best special economic zone of Europe of Foreign Direct Investment magazine of Financial Times. The largest companies such as Armstrong, Ford, Rockwool, and Tatarstan, which are called years of stagnation. The opening of Kazan Universiad, that was well heard all around the world, and after that, FINA water sports, and before that, Akbar's victory at first Gagarin Cup and the matches of Mundial of 2018. Well, Kazan was not always that fashionable, but the wooden Kazan, the way it was at the edge of 21st century, sometimes generates nostalgia. Well, that's the whole world. It's like the Atlantis that went to the bottom and would never surface. Well, back there in the wooden homes, half of that were forgotten. For us, for kids, that was the center of concentration of whole history, because it seemed that that's where history is, that's where is the past. we of course came up with so many things about those homes. Along my route to school, there was a house that was not inhabited, and I was running away, and I was telling that my grandma was living there, and my grandma is a witch, and there were lots of spider webs, and the stories that I was inventing, that she's growing spiders there and making soups for them, and I was telling to my classmates, come over, we'll be feeding you spider soup, and I was pretending that I'm eating it. Well, my brother believed that Baba Yaga, the witch, was living in those homes, and she was getting him frightened. Well, that's nostalgia, but Tatarstan was a socialist republic that was generating products worth of the three Baltic states combined. Let's keep on moving. Kuybyshev Reservoir, it's like the sea on Volga started being filled in 1950s, and in 63 decision is to block Kama, and it's when this beauty Nizhnekamsky hydropower plant comes. But the first electricity was generated in 1979. The new industrialization and construction people that were working here were moved further to Kamaz. Why? Over behind Nizhnekamsky hydropower plant, that giant was built in Tatar Soviet Union. When Brezhnev died, that city was named after him, but well, it was due to very active Tatar, the first secretary of Tatar Autonomous Soviet Socialist Republic. He used the opportunity that Brezhnev invited him to play dominoes, and Fikret said, well, you're offered to build it in Siberia and it will take 10 years. We'll build it in Tatarstan 5 years. They did, and there was a new dimension in art even created, industrial romantics. Tens of thousands of Komsomol young students were called from all over. In this photo, for example, a lady from Estonia. Chelny was a small city, 35,000 population. Thanks to Kaman, over 500,000 today. The most advanced technologies were being brought from abroad. A special role was played by German Socialist Republic.
It's from Germany. From GDR, so we had from West Germany technologies as well. In Tatarstan, in this hydropower station, they first tried and tested the best, which was made in the Soviet Union. We built out from in the middle of nowhere. We built this plant. But a lot of Kazan people lived in a very dilapidated houses. I lived in a small little apartment, but that we thought that's very good. That we had a toilet inside the house. Most of my classmates lived in very uncomfortable houses with toilet outside. Tatarstan produced 25 million tons of oil and got nothing. And send everything for the needs of the central government. Yes, people were deprived of any kind of fair salaries. So it was they built first underground road crossings, so it was not possible to organize normal trade. So it was a lot of illegal underground speculations, and there was a parallel line at that time. When this communist ideology finished, there was a lot of street crime at the time, although different generations consider differently these times, and they have different feelings about it. I was a little girl, and I was lining up for everything, but we were so happy when we got some food home, And mom was saying how wonderful I am, so that's good that our children don't see this deficit of food. I wasn't thinking that I need to be fed and taken care of. My parents took care of it, and for me it was, we had a lot of new books, and we had free access to literature. I am a big fan of perestroika, and there was freedom for us, freedom which we had during perestroika. We were very angry on Gorbachev and asking where are you leading us, and he was smiling. I was 14 years old in 1991. It was time of freedom, and we didn't have textbooks, we didn't have history books, we didn't have literature. My mom was made redundant, and my mom was worked in a company which was making submarines. Then this company closed, and her salary, she got her salary with, for example, a truckload of manure. So, and you had to sell it. I remember very well. We also had this perestroika and glasnost. What will be after that? And after that will be so that's so everything was being destroyed, and Bogachev was head of the National Bank of Republic of Tatarstan. We did not have any delays of paying salaries and any delays of pensions for the pensioners, whereas in the whole country there was a problem with that. So Minihana was a Minister of Finance, but of course political situation was very complicated. It was a very difficult time. As perestroika, when it started, you talk to people at the time, people were just demanding independence, and they probably expecting from you, how did you turn around this situation? I heard a lot in my address, and I'm not offended. Of course, we were lucky with Shaimiev, so because anything could have happened. It's just strange that at the time we saw a lot of nationalistic movements. I think it's very logical. I'm glad that we went through this. Half of our people are Tatars, and half of them Russians, and people of other nationalities. Why do we have to consider ourselves as the title nation? What about other nationalities who live here all the time? We cannot consider them aliens. I don't want to compare. So Jahar Dudayev, remember, he was a very talented officer. So he was demanding independence, and that's why he closed the door. He shut the door. When you have a crowd and they want to hear from you what they demand, but you must, you want to be loved by crowd, and people will glory you. If you don't have strong nerves, you cannot go into politics. If you cannot do it if you're weak. Yes, I believe that they had very radical passions and emotions, and that he managed to go through this without bloodshed. I think it's his big merit. I told you a lot when I was answering your question. It was long, but when I was elected first time and after 5 years, and journalists got together and asked me what was the most important your achievement during your first term in the office for the 5 years. The fear disappeared, and from the Russian-speaking people. But people's first 5 years, I was happy that the people were not fear of nationalism. Kazan, Kremlin, when Kazan hosted the CIS summit, just recently this beautiful Kremlin was totally different. What was inside there? Here, I don't remember exactly. There was a dining room, and I went there to study foreign languages, and I was going there to this cafeteria. So this is the Kulshayev mosque, which mosque and church. But before giving power to Minnikhanov, Shamiyev asked Minnikhanov to solve problem with the dilapidated housing. Roads. We built small plants in every region which produced tarmac, and Kazan Novgorod is a bad road, but it's not our fault. Tatarstan gave example how to get rid of slums. We didn't have this program. We had program of the slums annihilation, and it started by Shamiyev and continued by Minnikhanov. I remember old wooden Kazan, which was disappearing. Sometimes it was destroyed completely, but it was impossible to live in these houses. When you became president, you had commission of preserving what happened. It was not possible to live in these houses. But 10, 15 people living in one house, no conditions, no drainage system, no nothing. But I made mistake. We destroyed a lot of old houses, and we had to. Now we're very careful, so just to keep the historical center, not to build very tall houses, and just to have the we wouldn't make these mistakes, and at least to revive this historical part of the city. The city is very beautiful, and very glad that there was a period in the 90s so they moved to some chaotic construction, but recently it's just getting much better. When you go abroad and you are asked where you're from, what do you say? And I talk about Kazan a lot, and of course people don't get it as completely unknown. But in the 90s, when I was talking about Kazan, Volga, Kazan, Kazakhstan, now people know Kazan, and I'm very glad that my colleagues they come to me and say, "Oh, it's such a beautiful city." I'm very glad that I'm so as happy as if I built it myself. The program of beauty now is not just in Kazan, but in remote areas. Where are we? We are in Muslimova, somewhere in Europe, I think. Why do you need it? You live in the rural area. Why should we go to Europe? Europe must be here. from 3 to 5 years, we plan to renovate our public spaces. We now have even the glass doors. But now let's go back to the countryside. We formulated 3 criteria, 3K, the keys of our success. This is this beautiful, and it should connect with the culture and as if in the city. We have a new team of our architects which design, they create new projects, protect these new projects. They come to ask money. Yes, they come to ask money. But I believe that this is a very good, and for people, and in order not to be sycophantic. With Ramil, we had never had any problems. So what presidents did, first he gave a possibility to, he grew the generation of new architects, because now in Bashkiria, in Vladivostok, you can see our architects from Tatarstan who went to different parts of Russia. And one more important thing, and it's important for me, it's trust. I really thankful for Minikhanov that what we do became a breakthrough platform for a lot of new projects. It's quite a unique quality for the leader. We had agreement with our foundation, Give Life, and we organized events with children who went through oncology survivors, cancer survivors, and we organized this event, and the president heard about it, and he called me, and he apologized for the procrastination. I just couldn't imagine. So I was just amazed by his behavior. And looking at all these beautiful things, some people can say, yeah, Tatarstan has a lot of oil. Yeah, here's oil. But at the same time, when this oil was easy to produce, this time has gone. And so this oil feels like Ashantin. This oil is almost solid. Rustam Minikhanov was telling stories about attempts to buy these technologies abroad. In 2005, we went to Alberta, to Canada, to see it. We had nothing. We tried to establish the relations with the biggest companies, get technologies. They wanted to get our oil fields. This was 2005, 2007. We didn't have anything for this. Our scientists, they built machines and gave technology. It's very good that Canadians refused. It forced us to work. So we'll see who will be better. So what about conflicts of Volga and Kama? Which one flows into which? When you are in the center of this huge water space, you have a feeling as if you fly over a big sea or ocean. When you fly low, there's two sister rivers. Kama is older. Many years I lived in Udmurtia, and as a resident of Udmurtia, I can say that Volga flows into Kama. These two big rivers come together and form our identity. For my jubilee, I was given a genealogical tree for our family, and I found there that yes, I am a Tatar. Well, we have Bashkirs, but probably I have some Udmurts. Just the only thing you have to do is just to be proud of it. Well, there's no difference. It's all belong to us. What is Tatarstan? Tatarstan is when my favorite chef, Bulat Ibragimov, to Timur and I send us in our mixed Jewish Kazakh family send us college, and this is very nice. Why is it unique experiment which turned out to be a very good result? Yes, it worked. Tatarstan is everything for me. It's like my motherland, because without Kazan, without our plant, I just can't imagine myself. And for me personally, Tatarstan is a place where everybody can become what he wants. When people pay attention to what you do, not what you say. From 2014, we started our new development. At that time, we got less international investments, and we had two choices: stop and stagnate, or continue to develop. And we rethought our mission, and now we just create the biggest infrastructure, comfortable infrastructure. Tatarstan is the place where you want to live, to have kids. This is Russian Switzerland. I'll just say for our hospital, we have team of professionals. We have great people, and a relationship. It's just like a ship crew. If this you cannot stand against a small storm, you cannot go to the open ocean, to rough seas. So Kama flows into Volga, Volga flows into Kama. So, by the 100 years of Tatarstan, this is one of the most beautiful places in Russia.